Brilliant. So I have the singular honor of having my friend's wife, Dr. King, in our right as well. She is Ambassador Unyime-Ivy King. Let me just quickly do a quick background. I will just give an overview and just read through your profile, but I'd like you to tell people about yourself. I can't introduce you more than you can introduce yourself. So you're the best person to introduce yourself in the words in which that you like. I know one thing that really stands out distinctively is the fact that you said you are a 3-time ambassador. So I'd like you to speak to that. And the essence of Let's Talk is to create a platform, a safe place where we can talk, have conversation, no matter the topic, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Conversation that people don't often like to have. I celebrate you because you're a strong woman. I've never seen such a strong woman in recent times. Ambassador Unyime-Ivy King, she's a founder of Save Our Women and Girls Foundation and the CEO of HTT. She's going to speak to that Communication Limited. She's also an eminent ambassador of peace with the United Nations and an international organization of World Peace Advocates. Director, Gender Education Convener. It's a lot of title. So for me, I'm very bad with introduction because even I can't introduce myself most of the time. So I'd like you to tell us about yourself. Let's get to know you. Ambassador Unyime-Ivy King.
Okay, thank you very much, Mercy. I'm happy to be here tonight to share. I wouldn't have thought that this would be possible so soon, but I thank God for his faithfulness. Okay, in addition to what you have already about me, the ambassadorial awards and all of that, I like to see myself as primarily an advocate for the family, apart from what I do as a business. My name is Unyime-Ivy King, and due to the fact that we live in a world where many families, and families are the bedrock of society, are becoming so dysfunctional, and many people are more concerned with keeping up appearances than developing character. What I do is that I help people connect to the need for family as the first and important unit of socialization. I help them to re-examine their character with the intent of working on character flaws, knowing fully well that all human beings are works in progress, and understanding their worth, which is worth its weight in gold. So this drives people, this helps to drive people to give life their best shot, increases their self-awareness and skyrockets their self-esteem. I don't want to do the conventional introduction where I start telling people that I'm this, I'm that. I'm also not good with titles. I don't really care about titles. So I do all this through my speaking and my writing voices. I do it through my business and through the businesses that I do, one of which is HTT Communications, the printing and publishing company. And I seek to help people bring the tiniest of thoughts to life by working with them to create a treasure trove of life-transforming material that they can gift the world with. So as someone who has been a wife of 18 years, I worked with my husband as his purpose partner when he was here to contend with all the challenges of destiny. And now I found myself in a position where I'm a lone ranger, so to speak. I have to do life with the children. I have 4 children. I call them my 4 fledglings that I'm raising intentionally and purposefully, because I am fully convinced about the fact that my greatest contribution to humanity may not be anything material that I have acquired, but it could be someone I have raised. So this is me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very succinctly put. So a quick background for me. I've never met Unyime until the unfortunate situation that kind of brought us together. So Unyime is King's wife, Dr. King. I'm sure you will hear the troublemaker. So as you can see on the screen being projected, Dr. King, I'm on his Instagram account. If there's anyone that his death has greatly impacted my life is the death of Dr. King. And I've seen women not deal so well with loss, but Ambassador Unyime has done some remarkable work that really does blow my mind as a woman. So I'd like you to speak to the fact that, how did you take the news about the death of your husband? What were the first things that came to your mind? And how did you regroup that, Omo, I have to be the husband, I have to be the father, I have to be a friend to yourself? So I'd like you to share, because the focus of this is to inspire women to aspire for greatness.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I would love to say that no matter how strong a woman thinks she is, and you know, I've always thought myself to be a really strong woman. No matter how strong you think you are, nothing on earth prepares a woman for the loss of a loving spouse. You know, the blow could be lessened if that spouse was abusive. But in a situation like mine, that it was everything a husband should be, everything a woman would look for in a man, it can be one of the biggest, most devastating blows of life. And adjusting to that situation, I tell you, it's no joke. It's tough when you've been married for a while, gotten used to the person's presence, gotten used to their friendship, and they become like your go-to person when you need to do a heart-to-heart, and suddenly they are no longer there. So it's not a joke. I kid you not. Ubon King was not just my husband. He was my bestie. He was my confidant. He was my life coach. He was my mentor. We talked about everything, and all the time he used to say to me that he would say that he is not number one and I am number two, because you know there are relationships where the man lords it over the woman, but I didn't have that kind of situation in my relationship with my husband. He always used to say that both of us are number one. You are me and I am you. And that was really deep. And we had built our lives. I'm just giving you a background to explain how that news came to me when it came. So we had built our lives together from the scratch. We served in the same ministry together where he was chief protocol officer to our pastor then, and I was chief protocol officer to the pastor's wife. From there to sporting with friends when we first got married, sleeping on floors, to when our business started in our bedroom, until December 26, 2020, when I had the greatest shock of my life. You know, it's a different thing if a spouse has been terminally ill and you know, okay, one day this person is going to go, even though when it happens, you're still not prepared. But in a situation where you did not even see it coming, you know, and it happens suddenly, that is even more devastating. And until his passing, you know, we even shared an office to the end. We always planned to get separate offices, but somehow it never happened. And most Fridays from the office, we'd go for date night, which was every Friday. We're both in town. And sometimes when we go on those date nights, we won't even go home on Fridays. Our children got used to it and would roll their eyes at us, especially when their dad would keep telling them, make sure you take care of my wife. He literally used to draw their ears. Make sure you take care of my wife or else you answer to me. So it was a phrase we laughed about a lot in our family. So it was the toughest news of my life. But you know, at that point when it happened, my first thought was not really for myself. I had to go into denial. People say denial is a bad thing, but honestly, it's a survival mechanism at that particular point where you have to deal with so much. The news is so devastating that your mind cannot really process it at that moment. It's okay to go into denial. I had to do that, to switch to that survival mode, to be able to deal with breaking the news to my children and all of that. And it's not something that one wishes on their worst enemy. So my immediate thought and concern was for the children. I wasn't even thinking about myself. It was for the children. Then I remembered his mom was there at that time. I remembered my own mom. And, you know, my mom said something to me that when she heard the news, she just said to herself, wow, so this is how I'm going to lose two children. Because she knew how closely knitted my husband and I were. So she didn't even see a possibility of me surviving that kind of news. Then when she finally came to be with me in Lagos and she saw how I was coping from day to day, it really gave her strength and courage. And you know, funny enough, the children were the first people that gave me the courage that I needed to go on. Because even though I'm their mom, I must say those children shocked me. My oldest just turned 18. I have my son is 15, he's going to be 16 in November. I have my 12-year-old who is going to be 13 in August, and I have my 10-year-old, my last daughter, she just turned 10 in May 26th. And those children amazed me with their strength. They were even more concerned for me than any other thing. So seeing that, I told myself that I have 4 reasons to live. I have 4 reasons. My husband trusted me with these children. He trusted that I'll be able to take care of them in the eventuality of anything happening to me. And it's something that he did not just think about. He used to verbalize it to me all the time, that I love the way you take care of the children. You're a great mother. He was always saying that, because as a couple, one thing that I don't makes me really happy in spite of the pain of the loss is the way we celebrated each other. I'm thankful to God that we never lost an opportunity to celebrate each other. We could celebrate each other for every and no reason. You understand? So when the news was broken to me at a point where the doctors had told us, oh, he's stable, he's okay, he's going to be okay, because I had spent the whole of 25th December with him in the hospital with my siblings throughout the night. I was there. So I just said, okay, let me go home in the morning and go and change up so that I'll go back there. And it was while I was home that I called the hospital and I got that news. And before I could even say Jack Robinson, before I could spell Jack Robinson, that news was all over social media. So you can imagine a situation where you have children that can now read, you have children who can go online, and we're trying to hide that news because for me, I wasn't in a space where I could break that news to them myself. I thought, okay, let me wait if my mom can come in, or an adult, around me, so that we could break the news to them together. But the news, the way it was going online, people were, my siblings told me, he's trending on Twitter, he's #1 trend on Twitter, and all of that. We now have a dilemma on our hands. How do we manage this situation? Because there was a huge possibility that my children would go online and they would see what was going on. So we have to muster all the courage in our bodies to call the children. And the mistake I made, I first of all called my domestic and my nannies. I have 2 of them. God bless them. They've been awesome. They've been awesome. They've been awesome. And I said, okay, let me tell them first so that they could help me with the children to break the news. But that was the mistake I made, because they went wild. They just went crazy. They went outside, they rolled on the floor, they were screaming so much that eventually the children heard from upstairs, they ran downstairs, and it was a funny moment because they were pushing the front door to go out. And my sister was on the other side pushing to get them to go back into the house. So there was that scuffle. We can afford to laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny then. 4 children, 4 lions, they pushed the door open and they came outside and they met us outside. So I was faced with my worst nightmare of breaking the news to them that their father was gone. If he was a father that was absent, it would have probably hit them, but not as much as it did. But this was a father who, in spite of his busy schedule, was always there for the children. All the children kept telling me, Mommy, Daddy was busy, but Daddy always had time for us. Daddy always had time for us. So we broke that news to them. It's something that I don't even want to relive anymore. How we got through that first night, I will never know. But since nothing happened to anybody in the house, I'll just continue to give God all glory. Later on in the night, when my sister went to check on the children, she said she saw all 4 of them. They were holding hands and they were praying. She came back into the room and told me that this is what she has seen. They're holding hands and they're praying together. And I said, okay. For me, throughout, I don't think I slept that night. I'll just close my eyes for 1 second, open it again. That's what kept happening until morning. It was as if I was floating. I don't know how to describe that experience. So I had to go into that denial mode to cope with dealing with my own children. So it was when I knew that the children were in a space where, okay, they had accepted it, they now understood what had happened, that I gave myself permission to give in to the grief. So that was what happened. It was the most devastating news of, in fact, the day we're taking him to hospital, the 25th, that morning, he called everybody because they were preparing for a Christmas concert. My home is always fun. We are always planning one concert or the other. So that the children were already preparing for a Christmas concert. And I told him, okay, you're coming to sit downstairs. He wasn't feeling well. You're coming, you sit downstairs and watch the children. He agreed. And then one of my girls now brought wine and said, okay, let's share this wine, communion and all of that. We poured it for him. It was cold and I didn't want him to take anything cold. I said, we'll drink it on your behalf. He insisted. He said, give me that glass of drink. And I handed it over to him. He told me, call all the children. So I called the children to our room. Still, my mind did not click that something was going to happen. My mind did not click at all. And he prayed for all of us. He prayed, he blessed all of us. We took that communion together. And then when he was becoming weak and we took him to hospital, as he was walking out of the door, he said it to me while we took that communion. He said, you and the children will never see shame. And while we went downstairs, we were walking to the car. He said it again. He said, you and the children will never see shame. It did not even still click because for me, I felt that what he was saying to me was, don't worry, everything is going to be fine. I'll be okay and I'll come back. So saying you and the children will never see shame, I didn't see it like he was telling me that, like he was removing himself from that picture. But now looking back, that was it, you know? So went to hospital and that was what happened. So it was the news that no woman should have to deal with. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. The goal for me to have this conversation was people suffer grief at different stages of their lives.
Yeah.
Ubong skin zone really got to affected me badly.
Yeah. So many people.
Oftentimes when I lose people, I actually rarely react or have a sense of opinion. But for Ubong King, I was in church. I screamed. I busted into tears. I think I was crying like a fool, and I recorded that session. The pain for me is the last time I saw Ubong King physically was at Experience of 2010 or 11, where the mob was crazy, and they suffocated me that I actually passed out. They had to take me to the sick bay. So I was even angry with him that, hey guy, you saw that I was taken to the sick bay. You didn't concern yourself as my friend. Because Ubong and I grew up together. We grew up in the same street. We're childhood friends. So I'd like you to say some things that can inspire someone how to find strength to move on. I saw you at the service of Saul, and I saw the calmness, the ease, and like, how did she do it? How did she navigate this? So a lot of people are going through some darkest times of their life. How did you find the grace to be together? I know it was hard because you had people. So I'd like you to just say a way to like, just share your story, because tonight is all about you. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. What hit me was, like I said, something that should never happen to any woman. I had a decision to make. I had to make that decision at some point to carry on. I knew that my husband, you know, as much as I knew him, I could almost hear his voice audibly. I knew his mindset on a lot of things. So I could almost hear him saying, babe, I trust you and the children to carry on. I knew that wallowing in despair or sinking into depression is not something he would have been happy about. My husband was somebody who could never bear to see me unhappy. In fact, the fastest way to get on his wrong side, no matter who the person was for you to make me unhappy. Everybody knew this. Everybody who knew him well understood this. And in the first few weeks of the loss, one of his relatives, one of his close relatives kept saying, we know that Ubong's life revolved around you and the children. They knew. I knew I had to make the difficult decision to carry on in spite of the loss. And especially when I looked at our 4 beautiful children, they became my strongest reasons. After which I looked at my immediate family. I looked at my mom, I looked at my siblings, ever supportive, always there for us. My family has always been there for us. Even in those years when we slept on the floor, they never ever despised my husband. My mom had always been there to support us. My dad, then before he passed on, my whole family. So when I looked at all these people that God had positioned around me, I knew I had to muster the courage. I'm not a woman who makes many friends, though I relate with everyone if I have to. But the few friends that I have in my circle were also another strong reason, because they all stood with the children and I in a way that has awed me. My faith and my relationship with God is something that has been the foundation, and it's been the bedrock for me to be able to survive this period. God took me into his word, and I'm very unapologetic about my faith, because if I didn't have that personal relationship with God, if I didn't have that belief in God, I'm telling you, it would have been a dark tunnel that I would have sunk into. So God took me into his word, and he reached out from his word and hugged me with those words. I got into different, because I have this YouVersion Bible app on my phone. Sometimes what I do is that if I want to sleep, I just play the audio version of the Bible. Even if I'm asleep, my subconscious mind is feeding on the words. So it's building strength on the inner man, because I'm particular about building strength on the inside, you know. So I got into different, I activated different devotionals which talked about loss on that YouVersion Bible app. And I found so much comfort from God's word. Each time my heart was becoming overwhelmed by grief, I would run to the comfort of God's word. And he always comforted me. And you know what happened? That this season, God just took me on a journey of teaching me more about the death of a believer from a divine perspective. Yes, I've always known the Bible says to be present here is to be absent with the Lord, to be absent with the Lord, to be absent is to be present with the Lord. Of course, I knew all that one, head knowledge, but that head knowledge became real in this season. And I, in turn, shared this with my children and my family. And amazingly, my children showed so much strength and resilience in this season. It amazed me. I didn't think they'll be that strong. God awed me in every sense. So I just decided that I would take each day as it comes. And at the end of each day, I bless God for it. I didn't just go into planning, okay, let me plan for the future, 20 years ahead, 5 years from now, 1 year from now, what's going to happen? No, I didn't even bother. I just concentrated on the here and now, on getting better. So I took it one step at a time, because my greatest strength, you know, apart from my relationship with God, comes from the kind of person Ubon King himself was. Let me expatiate. I never saw my husband allow adversity to break his spirit. And he had been through a lot of those moments, a lot. In fact, even from family, the way he was humiliated, the way I've seen people humiliate him because of a time in his life where he suffered so much lack, but I never saw him downcast to the point where he lost it. I never saw him downcast to the point where he planned revenge. I always used to see Ubon King pay back the evil that men did to him with good. So he taught me how not to allow trouble to break my spirit. That's one thing that I got from him, no matter what, because things would happen that I would not be able to sleep, and Ubon King is sleeping soundly. And I'll be like, how come you're able to sleep when all hell is breaking loose? And that's just the kind of person he was. So to cope, I choose what I want to dwell on or focus my thoughts on, because sometimes I would wake up and the sense of loss would be so heavy on me, because all through, maybe while sleeping, my mind has dwelt on the fact that he has traveled. In fact, sometimes I would even have an actual dream that he traveled, and in that dream I'll be scolding him that, why have you refused to call me? So unlike you, how will you travel for this long? And you know, waking up from that kind of dream can be very depressing. So some days it's great, some days it's not so great, but even during the not so great days, I choose not to dwell on his absence, because it's easy for you to dwell there and you become miserable and all of that. So coming to terms with the fact that he's no longer here has also helped me. I'm not in denial. Yes, I was initially, but I've gone past that stage. That was a survival mechanism for me. I acknowledge what has happened, and I also know that he would have expected me to be able to take care of the children. Like I said earlier, he trusted me to do that and commended me a lot for that. So When I remember all those words of encouragement he used to say to me, when I remember God's word, what God's word says to me, when I look at the support system, it renews my resolve to keep giving each day another fight for survival. Because that's another thing that God did for me, the support system. Somebody said something to me. The person said that, all these people that are coming to greet you, that are in your space, the moment after a while, you will not find them anymore. You're going to be all alone and all of that. And I said something to the person. I said that my support system is not external. It has never been at any point. My support system is internal, first of all, and the people that God has God has been faithful. God has been faithful. I just see that God saw the future ahead, and he positioned me so that I could be able to offer hope to somebody who suffers this kind of loss and becomes despondent. God raised up a home-based support system for me in my children, in even the kind of nannies I have. I have two wonderful nannies. One has even been with me for over 5 years. She's like an older sister to my children. I have really close friends. My siblings, they have been awesome. My brothers-in-law, my husband's brother, his direct younger brother, his stepbrother, God just raised them for me in this season. So that support, that internal support, that home support is always there, even when the concern and the inquiries from the external support, which I also appreciated at that time, has gone down. You understand? So that also for me is something that has helped me a whole lot in this season, having that support system. And I believe that anybody who is grieving should, if you don't have that already, you need to develop that, because you need people. You need a support. They don't have to be a crowd. Even if it's just 3 people that are there for you when you're in your worst moments, when you're in your high moments, when you need to talk, when you need to vent and all of that, you need those people to be there. Just 1 or 2, 3 reliable people, not necessarily a crowd. So those are some of the things. And another thing is that the children and I, we share a lot of fun memories, a lot, and anecdotes of his life. We have such a rich treasury of memories. And I encourage my children to share. We laugh, we imagine what his reactions to certain situations would have been. Like when I colored my hair red, they told me how Daddy would have cheered me on. They reminded me about his reaction the first time I had colored my hair purple, how he had been excited and all. And we laughed about it. And this is something that sharing. I don't shield my children. I don't. I encourage them to cry. I don't tell them, don't cry, it's going to be okay. I encourage them to cry if they need to, especially my son, because there's this thing about thinking that because that men don't cry. I made my son understand that he doesn't need to man up, because real men cry too. So I gradually got my son to open up to me about his fears when his father passed on, because one of his first reactions was, Mommy, I can't, I'm not ready. Mommy, I'm not ready. He kept shouting that because he and his father had sessions upon sessions together that they didn't even let me into. They kept saying this is men's talk and all of that. So he felt a heavy sense of responsibility coming on him, and he wanted to be kind of withdrawn. But I kept at it. I kept encouraging him until eventually he opened up to me. So having those conversations helped us a great deal. And last year alone, during the lockdown, we made so much memories. It's as if God saw what was going to happen. We took so many pictures. We have so many videos that I could even make a home video from them. Celebrations that we could make a whole movie from, because it was so intentional the way my husband celebrated each person. Everybody's birthday during that lockdown, we took out time. We had a theme celebration, and we decorate the whole house. We'll set up my house, turn it into something, and everybody will celebrate. We'll celebrate for any and no reason. So all those memories are things that have helped us to cope in these times of loss. So I encourage anybody out there who is going through the pain of that kind of loss. I would say that, first of all, I want your life should not end because of your sad loss. A lot of women have thought that, okay, because my husband is no more in the picture, life ends. Of course, life will change in some way. It's not going to be exactly what it was before, because loss and the death of a lost one changes you in a way that life can never be the same anymore. But in spite of that, you can still move on. And there's no rule book or time frame to grieve. If anybody is going through loss, if any woman has lost her husband, because you're going to read all sorts, you're going to hear all sorts about the order of grief, what order it should take. Week 1, you're supposed to be like this, week 2, and all of that. But it doesn't follow, because sometimes you will be okay, sometimes you will feel as if the whole world is on your shoulder, and it's okay, it's a process. Some people would even expect that after a certain period, they count for you, that okay, it's been 6 months now, it's been a year now, you're supposed to have moved past that. But it doesn't follow. Or they tell you that you're moving on too fast. Whatever you choose to do, just know that there'll be lots of backlash from everyone on what everybody has an opinion on what you should do. Everybody has an opinion on how your grief pattern should be. People will say a lot of things that could even worsen your pain, but pay them no attention. Some people in my husband's family said I brainwashed him. They said I killed him. Someone said I'm the woman, a cousin of mine said somebody in Akwa Ibom saw my picture on her phone and said, oh, this is a woman who killed her husband and went to paint her hair red and all sorts. And I told my cousin, you know what? I absolutely do not care. I shook all that off. I won't dwell on it, because my focus is not on all that negative talk. My focus is on getting stronger. My focus is on my children. And if you have children, if you experience loss, you have children, please focus on your children if you have them. The side talks are unnecessary distractions. And like I said before, if you are facing loss, you need a strong support network. Seek help to cope. There's nothing wrong with that. Because what the enemy delights in doing when you're facing grief is to try and get you isolated from support systems, so that he can push you into depression and suggest maybe self-harm. That's when you hear that somebody is trying to kill themselves because their husband passed away. So do not isolate yourself from help. You are much more than that. Your spouse's work on this side of eternity may have come to an end, but you need to carry on with your God-given mandate, because it helps also if you're facing grief and you have a sense of purpose, one that was not merely wrapped around your whole existence of you being a wife, your relationship with your spouse. If there was more to being a wife than that, you were not just fixated on that role alone, you understand that you have a purpose in spite of what has happened, in spite of the loss. You have a purpose. Aside your purpose as a wife, you have your purpose as an individual. And if you're a believer, you know that you would give an account for how you utilize the gift that God gave you. Are you going to stand in front of God and tell him that I lost my spouse and that is why I couldn't carry on? Your spouse has finished his journey. He will give account individually, and you are going to do the same. So regardless of how life hits, it may derail you temporarily, I agree, because when that kind of thing hits you, it can even knock you out, but it should not take you out permanently. So you fight for the expression of that rich treasure trove of significance that is embedded inside of you. It is there. Allow it to come out and don't wallow in pity parties or endless grief. One thing that I wrote on my Facebook page when it happened, I specifically told people, I said, I'm not going to entertain pity parties. Don't pity me. Yes, what has happened is traumatic and all of that, but I'm not going to sit down with you and do pity parties. Don't call me and start crying. Finish crying first, and then you call me and we'll talk. I had to be careful with my mind. I had to be careful with the information that I allow to come into my space. So because there's a way somebody comes to grieve, good intention and everything, but they end up dumping something on you. You end up so depressed after somebody has come to condole you. So you begin to wonder. So I had to be careful about the kind of people that are allowed to speak to me at that time, people that would encourage me, people that would give hope, I was really mindful of that information. So give yourself permission to mourn, give yourself permission to grieve. Do not stay in denial, but also give yourself permission to live also. And another thing is that, especially in this part of the world, if you're faced with the loss of a spouse, especially for women, you will find that all sorts will come at you. For me, apart from just dealing with the loss, I had to deal with family problems, in-law issues. I had to deal with a whole lot of that as well, because it's as if everything just hits me at the same time. I wasn't even done grappling with what had happened. This one hit me, and all of that. So if you're facing those kind of family challenges, there are organizations that can help you figure out what to do, aside your close friends, aside your immediate families. And one of those organizations for women is the International Federation of Women's Lawyers. At some point, I had to reach out to them when the family was proving difficult, and they came at me and all of that with all sorts of stuff, hitting me with letters and all of that, and feedback came through for me. You can imagine a situation where my husband used to openly express his feelings about family. He shared his struggles in several videos which are in the public domain on his YouTube page, how God directed him to even drop his surname and all of that, and still they attempted to wrestle his body with me. So I can imagine situations where a man honored his family above his own nuclear family unit. And there are women like that who have had to deal with those kind of situations where their husband put his own family above his own immediate family, above her and the children. So it makes it a lot tougher. And this kind of women, when they are hit with a loss, it becomes a huge battle. It's a battle that so many women have to deal with, because some of them get stripped of all that they've worked for with their husbands. Some of them get even chased. I've heard stories this season of women who have been chased out of their homes, all sorts of hideous and inhumane practices in the name of culture. So seek counsel from legal channels, and from groups that advocate against these inhumane practices against widowhood, because they could be of tremendous help. And don't be ashamed to plug into your faith-based support system. Your faith, whatever your beliefs are, is a support system for you. And you also need to understand that when it comes to dealing with the loss, anniversaries will be tough. I wrote on my Facebook this year, on Father's Day this year, it was tough. It was tough for the children and I, but we intentionally decided to focus on the positive. We decided to focus on the good memories that we have had with him. So you can decide ahead of time that when these anniversaries are by the corner, maybe your wedding anniversary, birthdays, and Christmas celebrations and all of that, you can decide to focus on the memories of good times that you had shared in the past. You might think that it's impossible to do this, but I'm telling you, the human mind and the human spirit is incredible. It has the ability to bounce back from the most difficult of adversities. So if you really take that decision that this has happened, okay, I'm here now, what do I do? Because the truth of the matter is that no matter how much you cry, no matter how much you roll on the floor, no matter how much you inflict wounds on yourself, it's not going to bring that person back. You're just maybe, I don't know if it brings emotional satisfaction from harming yourself like that. So you just have to make that decision at some point, and look, this has happened, but life has to go on. Life has to go on.
Absolutely.
So that's the decision that I made.
I wanted to ask certain questions. You have covered them. The goal for tonight's conversation was for you to talk, for me to listen. For what many of you guys watching this conversation, Unyime and Ubong got married as school lovers. The story is in public domain.
Yeah.
Ubong didn't have a penny, and he had to sleep on the floor of his mother-in-law. This woman has weathered the storm with Ubong. I was sharing on his YouTube page and Instagram page how Ubong, when they say they celebrate everything and anything, trust me, Ubong did for his children, for his wife, and he truly did. I will sorely miss him because he's a friend that is close to my heart.
Yeah.
And my greatest pain and regret is the fact that he knew I was about to birth LEARNTOR. He never got to meet with me physically. So I was hoping that at some point we'll meet. I would have met him at Tincation, but I didn't. I want to sincerely appreciate you, Unyime, for sharing.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a different question. Maybe that's the last one because we're supposed to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Amongst, who would you call your superhero? Not in your family, not directly. It could be an employee. I'd like you to mention like 5 people that you would like to celebrate, not pastors. I'm talking about people
Yeah.
that have organically impacted your life. Organically. We all know your mom did. We all know Ubong did. I want to hear people that ordinarily would not be spotlighted, for you to mention like 5 names, and let's appreciate them as we celebrate the life of Ubong, because Ubong celebrates. And by the way, let me educate everyone before you do that. One of the reasons that I was able to focus and center myself was because of Ubong King. Please go on his YouTube page and go and watch The Law of Compartmentalization.
Yeah.
It changed the game for me. So, and it took me through that process. So for me, Ubong will always be here for me. I didn't have too many to say. I'm very intentional what I allow in, what I don't allow in. I control my narrative. People can talk whatever they want to say. I don't care. Because they can't be bothered. I can't be bothered about it. Nah, I'm on phase. So I'd like you to celebrate 5 people, not pastors. I don't want to hear. Not family. People that ordinarily don't have a stage, but they have touched your life in ways that you can't begin to comprehend. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can. But
Let's
I
go.
think in doing this, I still have to look within my immediate circle, because like I said, what God did for me is that all the resources that I needed to go through this horrible period, He planted it right around me. So I didn't need to go too far to search for those kind of people. And I want to use this opportunity I celebrate the GMD of our company, Chris Aluta. I celebrate Amma Ayebe. I celebrate the management team of the company, Ruth Enudi, Andre, Pete. I celebrate them, Mike Adagwa. They've been like the arrowheads of the company, and there are people that my husband poured into their lives, and in this season they have helped to hold my hands up. In fact, one of them, a few days before my husband passed, his wife sent me a message and said that, imagine, my husband came to their house in Abuja, and my husband said if anything ever happens to him, that her husband is responsible for me and the children. And they just said, okay, that in her mind, they said this is something that maybe many, many years down the line, not even, and to imagine that he said that few days after that he was gone. And he said something to another person that a few days, like 11 days precisely, because somebody called me, and that my husband has said it, that he is a fulfilled person, that if anything happens to him now, he knows that his wife and his children will not suffer because he has raised men. And my husband planted men. And some of these people have held my hands and my children's hands up, these names that I've mentioned. And I just want to publicly celebrate them.
Yes, that's what I want.
Yes, in spite of what has happened, they are still pushing on to ensure that his legacy is preserved. It's very few people that have that, because what often happens is that once the founder of an initiative or a vision passes on, everything disintegrates. There's a lot of fighting and all of that. But this has not been the case. Ubong King built a solid structure, and it's been awesome. And of course, I cannot fail. Yes, I know you said don't mention family, but those are who have been there. My siblings. Yes. My siblings, Alvin, in short, that's my immediate younger brother. He's my first brother. If I didn't have him in my life when this thing happened, I don't even want to think about how it would have happened. He's the one that took my husband's body with his PA. Yes, his PA too. Ayo has been too much. They took the body to the morgue. They did the initial running around when I was still in a state of shock, and I want to celebrate all of them. I celebrate Abasi Freka, I celebrate Udwak Emmanuel John, I celebrate Frances, I celebrate Nsidebe Okpong, I celebrate Ekeme. Young Ekeme is my cousin. These are people I celebrate, my mates. I celebrate Cecilia, and I celebrate Enobong, because these awesome people have held my hands up in this season. If not, it would have been really terrible. So I just want to thank God for their presence in my life. And of course, I celebrate Neddy. Neddy is my PA. She's even on the call. She's also been awesome in the ways that she has supported. So I say, God bless all of you. And you know, whatever you have made happen for me in your darkest moments of need, you will never lack support. You will never lack support in Jesus' name.
Amen. That was important for me, because oftentimes we never acknowledge help that are before us. We always celebrate the public figures that we admire. But the real people that hold it together, you know, the way Ubon celebrated you, he knew you held him together. When he talks about you, women, he knew you held it together. So for me, I'm very grateful. I don't have a relationship with you, but I know because of Ubon King, this has happened. I told you, send me your number, you opened your arm and you sent it to me. And today we are talking about a great guy, a great friend, and someone that is a real change agent. And unfortunately, his life was cut short before he was 50 years old. I'm sorry for your loss. I hope that your sharing today inspires your children. I hope they are motivated to know that their father left a lasting legacy. I hope that they see this, even in their darkest moments when they want to feel down, they recognize that their father was a good man. And really, this is the only way I can pay Ubon King, by showcasing you. In any way that we can support, I'll be more grateful. Unyime,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I may not
God
be your
bless you.
friend, but you know that.
You are my friend already now. Which one is it? I wouldn't have sent you my number otherwise. And you know, one thing my husband did. One thing my husband did was, even if I'm not involved in that friendship, he always made me know the people he related with. And it made it easy for me in this period to be able to sieve the grain from the chaff. Because I knew at each point, whoever he was relating with, he always let me know. Even up to family relationships, he let me know this one is important, this one forget him, and all of that. So we're a very communicative couple. So even if you may not have seen my name pop up in that, I knew about you. So that was why I could send my number to you. So you're my friend. We are friends already.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry for your love.
Thank you.
May your end. And I celebrate Mark for keeping on the fire of temptation. I celebrate all the team working on Ubon King Foundation. I celebrate you, Unyime. You are an inspiration, and I hope that this
that's even another part that I didn't even go to. The Ubon King Foundation team. In short, there's a whole lot.
Talk about it for 2 minutes.
Debbie Shegun, Mark Idiahi, and the team, the whole. Of course, Alvin again, my brother is also on that team, you know. They have kept it going. Ayo, they have kept that dream alive. And I celebrate, I celebrate Fior, I celebrate Chris. These are the people that churn out all those beautiful designs on the Ubon King platform. We don't go out externally, everything is just in-house. So I celebrate all these wonderful people, all the leaders of the Thinkation tribes, beautiful, wonderful people, the Thinkation E-Team media, beautiful, wonderful people. I just celebrate God for the way he has surrounded me with wonderful support. Support. I just bless God.
And that's why you're radiating. So let's just silence the noise. Mute them all.
Totally.
Dye your hair blue if you want.
I'm even trying another color after this one because the red has gone off. I need to try and maybe green this time.
Dye your hair any color and live a good life, my dear. God bless you.
Thank you, my sister.
And someday I'll come and visit you and the children. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being on the